Hey everybody, it's Brian from PhoneArena, and this is our video review of the HTC EVO 4G LTE. Now, just looking at the phone like this, it's going to look very similar to HTC's One X, which we just recently saw on AT&T and of course the international launch. And there's good reason for that. They are of the same bloodlines. However, there are some key differences that we'll get into on the EVO 4G LTE that the One X does not have. Starting off with some similarities, the first thing you're going to notice on the phone is the bright, vivid, gorgeous, giant 4.7-inch HD display. It utilizes Super LCD 2 technology, which has IPS as well, so that means we have fantastic viewing angles. As we approach 90 degrees, maybe not on the video here, but what we're actually looking at, we can still see the display and read it pretty well. So, great viewing angles. It is extremely bright, which means outdoors in direct sunlight we can use this without any problem. There's definitely some glare as you're seeing our lights from the light box here, and that's something you notice outside and really something we see with every phone, so can't quite get away from that. But it is coated with the new Corning Gorilla Glass 2, which is thinner and lighter than the original while still maintaining the same amount of rigidity and toughness. So for those of you who are prone to dropping the phone, the glass is going to be very strong. Down at the bottom, we've got the same three capacitive buttons found on the One X. We have back, home, and our multitasking button. We actually kind of like HTC's use of the capacitive buttons over the Galaxy Nexus and the on-screen buttons because that gives us just a little bit more screen real estate down here. So that's definitely one of the nicer features. Moving along to the back of the phone here, we start to see some of the differences between the EVO 4G LTE and the HTC One X. You of course have the controversial two-tone finish here. This top is a plastic door, whereas the bottom is an anodized matte aluminum finish, and you have the EVO red band right in the middle, as well as the ring around the camera. Let's pop this door off here, and we're going to see one of the main differences between the two phones, and that is a memory card slot. So, for all the HTC One X users out there that were complaining that they couldn't expand the memory, the EVO 4G LTE users are going to have that convenience. So it holds cards up to 64 gigs. There's about 10 internal gigs usable to the user, so around 74, 75 gigs or so. And then you can also augment that with 25 free gigs that HTC is giving of Dropbox cloud storage. So all in all, about 100 gigs possible on the 4G LTE here, which should be more than plenty for pretty much anybody, especially considering things like Google Music and Amazon Wireless that gives you cloud storage lockers for your music. Now, the kickstand resides in this red band here, and it's a very, very solid kickstand. It's a little hard to get out, but that's because everything's really, really solid on here. You can see we're giving that some good pressure. The kickstand is really well designed. It's definitely the sturdiest one we've used. And it's got kind of a unique feature in that you can use it both ways, which we saw on the Motorola Photon and unofficially on the EVO. By the way, using it in this orientation allows you to access the micro USB charging port. But because it's not spring-loaded like the original EVO was, you can actually kind of change the angle that the phone sits at. So if for some reason you need it to be at a sharper angle, depending on if it's sitting on your desk or however you're sitting, you do have that flexibility thanks to the sturdiness of this kickstand. So just kind of a cool feature, nothing too amazing, but it just shows the little minute details that HTC took in this phone. Now down at the bottom we've got the matte aluminum unibody. This is anodized aluminum down here, so it gives it kind of a soft touch feel. Despite how big and thin the phone is, even at the plastic up top, it's actually pretty grippy. So when you pick it up, it doesn't feel like it's going to slide out of your hand, which is definitely a nice feature. Along the side here, you can see the silver finish, and that's actually seamless with the black, and that's because this is still the same unibody. HTC just milled down the aluminum to its natural color to provide a real nice contrast from the matte black. So again, nothing that's going to be really functional, but something that shows that they put a lot of time and thought into the design of this phone, and it really turns out well with that nice contrast on the trim there. We'll take a quick look at the interface. This is of course Sense 4.0 running on top of Android 4.0.3 Ice Cream Sandwich. Sense 4.0 is really nice. It still retains the same kind of bloodlines that the earlier versions of Sense has, but it's a little bit more mature, a little bit more stripped down, a little bit more grown up. Things like the Rosie down here is customizable, so we can move apps in and out of that if we choose. We can create folders, which is an ice cream sandwich option. Even things like our people widget here, we can now resize them if we wish to. So just going along with the ice cream sandwich kind of design philosophy, take a look at the app drawer here. We can see that the apps now scroll horizontally instead of vertically. And another cool feature of Sense 4 is this tab editing. So down at the bottom we can see we can bring a downloaded tab into there. If we want to switch around the order of the tabs, we can do that. So just some personalization options that makes things a little bit easier to use and a little bit more personable. Sense was getting a little intrusive, things like the spinning carousel, which is now gone. It's good to see that missing. So they've definitely stripped it down. If you don't like Sense, this is a little bit better, but you're probably still not going to like it. But for those of you who enjoyed Sense and kind of went away from it, it's probably worth giving it a new shot. It uses some of the ice cream sandwich philosophy here, as we see in the People app with the big pictures and everything, but at the same time still retains the HTC sense and feel, and really just a nice user experience overall. So we're very impressed with that. We'll take a quick look at the stock browser here. As you see, we have our page loaded, and that's one of the issues we have with the One X. As we zoom in, it kind of does that little blink animation, but if you caught that, what it actually did is it snapped the text to the middle of the screen because we had zoomed in on the middle where the text was a little bit misaligned. So that just allows us to read it there. So maybe a little bit of annoyance for some, that little blink rendering, sometimes the blank pages, but it's really kind of a usability feature and allows you to have that text right there on the middle of the page. Not a big deal for us. As you see, these buttons do pop up at times. It's not really random like it was before, but generally when we scroll our fingers down, it'll pop those up, and it's a little bit less prominent at times than others, but really the stock browser is really smooth. We don't have too many complaints with it. There are other options in the market. We are a big fan of Chrome Beta, so if you're looking for something beyond this stock browsing performance, you can check out some other options. Now, the camera is, of course, one of the most hyped features here in the HTC EVO 4G LTE as well as the One X, and it actually works pretty well. We did have some issues in low light conditions, especially indoors. Pictures weren't all that great, but at times it actually produced very, very good pictures. So it's still a cell phone. It's not going to replace your top-end point-and-shoots, but for most users, it'll do the job in your daytime conditions. It's really quick. There's pretty much no shutter lag. We can use both the camera shutter up top or the on-screen button. Take a look at some of the options. You have a lot of filters. You can probably thank Instagram for having all these options. And then you also have a couple different shooting modes. You've got, of course, your auto. We have the always popular HDR mode. Panorama sweep shot is really nice. It's probably not going to work in our light box here, but basically we're just going to start and zoom around, and it's going to snap a picture at each appropriate point. Some of the other features you have, of course, portrait. You have a group portrait, landscape, whiteboard, close-up, and low lighting conditions. So overall, the options are pretty much what you would expect. One of the issues we had with the One X was the video recording. It only recorded true HD video at about 22 frames a second. We did get 29 frames a second with the One X, or excuse us, with the 4G LTE, but the video quality still wasn't all that good. It was a little bit choppy. As we moved from a far focus to a near focus, it didn't really move that well. But one of the cool features as we start recording a video here is we can still snap a picture as we are recording this video. And that's actually a feature that is in the regular video player too. Bear with us a second while we load up some of our videos. And we'll start our little test here. And you can see you still have the little camera button, and even when the video is playing, you can grab your screenshot. So that's kind of a cool feature. It's pretty unique to the 4G LTE and the One X, but something that we like to see nonetheless. We are going to find a pair of microphones on the 4G LTE. The first is down here on the bottom. That's the main microphone, and then up top we have a secondary noise canceling microphone. This phone is the first one with HD voice to launch in the US, and we can say it really works. Callers were just amazed at how good we sounded on the phone, and we have to really say the same thing about them. Everything was very loud, very lifelike. There was no distortion. It wasn't quite landline experience, but it was really close, and it was by far better than any phone we've tested. And callers said it was definitely better than any phone we tested as well. So kudos to Sprint and HTC for bringing that HD voice technology to market. We really look forward to seeing that incorporated on more devices, and it's just really good. Now, one of the drawbacks to the phone is the fact that there is no removable battery. And that's really one of our main concerns. It's got a 200 milliamp battery, which is, or excuse us, 2000 milliamp battery, which is pretty beefy. But you can see here the phone's been played with for about 8.5 hours now. We're down to roughly 20-25%. We'll see how that's going to have play out in real world usage. We've had our display set up all the way, so setting the brightness down is going to do that. We've been playing with the phone like crazy today, so 8 hours of heavy usage with 25% battery left is pretty reasonable. However, there's no LTE right now. So LTE has definitely been known to chew up the battery, and we're a bit anxious to see what that's going to do to it. In the end, we came away really impressed with the EVO 4G LTE. It's got a great blend of style and functionality. We're really impressed by the aluminum unibody design, and Sense 4.0 on top of Android Ice Cream Sandwich runs buttery smooth. The new HD voice capabilities make the sound better than ever, and HTC's Beats audio integration is now throughout the whole phone, not just in the music application. The camera wasn't always the greatest, but it definitely could produce some great pictures, and we really like the return of the kickstand. All in all, this is an amazing phone, definitely the best Android device out there, and probably the best smartphone right now. It'll of course face stiff competition in the near future with the Samsung Galaxy S3 and whatever Apple has up its sleeves this year. But for the moment being, the HTC EVO 4G LTE is our smartphone of choice.